Hey everyone, welcome to episode 22 of Tuesday Tips. Today is a very important episode. It's about one of my pioneering achievements in 6x6 center building. It's like, kind of. 6x6 center building on the advanced stage is very complicated, and there's a lot of different things you can do to reduce your move count. Um, everything I do for centers is definitely going to be covered in kind of the super expert tip series, but when I was kind of getting to this stage, it's definitely something you would start wanting to keep in mind as you're trying to break into that kind of world-class level of speed solving. So in the intermediate tips, I talked about how you can make your middle center and then you can build outwards you make your middle 2x2 and build outwards. That's a very good option where you're making 2x1s and putting them together, but this is kind of a little different than that, where you're making 2x1s you're making 2x4s, so you're making a 2x4 block here out of 2x1s and then building outwards. I'm just going to go ahead and say that this is usually useful for the first 2x4, as the recognition on this is very difficult, and it's much easier if there are a few options. While if you're building the second 2x4, these pieces are already used and you're only looking for one specific piece, which gets pretty tricky. So kind of go over the basic how to do this. So the goal is to find 2x1s and put them together into a 2x4. So this green happens to already be pretty nice. 2x1, 2x1, 2x1. And then we need to build this last 2x1, which goes, where's the piece? And then we have a 2x4. And you may be thinking, wow, that's a lot of effort. You had to put 4 2x1s together just to make a 2x4? That seems like it's kind of a waste of moves. And yeah, it probably would be, except the thing is, these are literally always already made for you. Like, I've seen how often you find 2x1s just kind of floating about. When I'm doing my first center on 6x6, it's very common for me to start with doing 2x1s to put stuff together just because of how common they are. So right here on 4x4, this is an easy 2x1 center. So we have a 2x1 here. It doesn't have to be the 2x4 on the right side. It can be the 2x4 in the middle as well. So we have this 2x1 here. We have a 2x1 here, 2x1 here, and a 2x1 here. Match. And now we can build this next 2x1. And we have a 2x4 block. That was really low move count, completely random. Stuff like that will literally happen all the time. Going into an extreme amount of depth would probably take an hour or two just on all the crazy cases. Definitely something you're going to be kind of on the lookout for while you're doing your big cube solves on your 6x6 and 7x7 centers. This is also useful on 7x7 centers, building 2x1s to make 2x5 blocks. I found it to be much harder, probably because I'm not nearly as experienced as it. But actually, it's probably the same difficulty. I'm just worse at it. This is definitely something that it took me a really long time to get good at this. Like, probably a year or two between when I started to do this a little bit to when I became now I'm very, very comfortable with it. I can do it without, just almost as fast as pretty much everything else. The thing is, the recognition is terrible for this. Like, finding a 2x1 to match, finding the pieces to match this 2x1 is you always are like, oh, is this one actually going to fit, or which oblique is going to match? It's like a real big pain, but it's definitely something I would recommend getting used to, especially as you kind of move to be faster. Kind of another cool trick is that while, say, you can avoid some bad cases by, how do I do this properly? Yeah. So, nope. Sorry. Right, okay, so now I'm trying to think. Anyways, you can also do this to build the 2x4 on the side. Sometimes it's helpful to build 2 2x2s, and then things that wouldn't match up normally will solve. I couldn't find a easy way to set it up, but if you do this a lot, you'll kind of see what I mean. So yeah, this is pretty advanced 6x6 and 7x7 center building, but definitely something that you don't need to master in order to break 150 or 240, but it's definitely something that you should be kind of on the lookout for when they're really, really easy. And when you're kind of getting into expert center building, you're going to want to be kind of looking for this a lot.